And I'm gonna hit the transcribe. Alrighty, I'm gonna start letting everybody in.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome. We are recording this session and recording a transcript. We're just letting in a bunch of folks right now. And so without further ado, Chris, over to you.
Chris, you're on mute.
There we go. Thanks so much. Yeah, it wouldn't let me unmute. It had to let you unmute me. So we're good to go. Awesome. Well, thanks everyone for joining. I am a bit sick today, so apologies if I mute to cough or drink a sip of water as we go through. So appreciate everyone's patience with that. The purpose of today's conversation is more so to go over rank, resonate, and converts. There's been a lot of questions lately in terms of how to rank in LLMs, but we also want to talk about on-page optimization above and beyond LLMs, and that's the point of today's conversation. So there is a multi-goal page challenge where landing pages are pulled in a lot of different directions. You have SEO wanting to earn visibility. You have LMO in terms of feeding AI retrieval block and answer engines, whether you want to call it LMO, Geo, etc. You want to speak to the hopes, fears, dreams, and concerns and buying triggers of your ICP. You want CRO to turn visitor into leads, sales, MQLs, average order value increase, etc. You want to keep your brand, tone, and voice. SEM might want to come in and say, oh, well, we want different variations of this page. And the CEO comes out the top rope and asks to add a picture of their dog for some reason, and then everyone's least favorite team, legal and compliance. So a landing page is pulled in a lot of different directions, but thankfully with the power of AI, you can do a lot of things in an automated fashion, which is great. So how AI powers these workflows is if you do a manual approach, it's more inconsistent, it's subjective, it's time intensive. On top of that, it also requires human expertise that can vary from individual to individual. So you might have some people following brand guidelines and tone of voice to one extent, another one following it to a different extent. So it's great to have AI come into place to make it more objective. Difficulty balancing discipline requirements in parallel and difficulty scaling versus AI and automation. It's more systematic, consistent, objective, instant, and you're able to roll it out much more smoothly. Just as a heads up, I never advocate, obviously, for AI to run rampant and allowed to make changes to your website at will. We always believe in AI-empowered SEOs or AI-empowered content writers or AI-empowered advertising specialists, etc. I would never advocate just to let it run wild because there's just so many things that could go wrong in that process. So the first thing we want to take a look at is ICP and insights matrix. So how do you resonate more with your ICP leveraging AI? So when it comes to conversion copywriting and ICP analysis, a lot of people in the SEO world tend to look at traffic as the cheese to attract the mice, but they only kind of stop at traffic and don't think of things above and beyond that. What I mean by that is if anyone saw the HubSpot debacle earlier this year, they lost like 80% of their traffic. and it was brutal. But of course, that was more of a cheese play because there was a bunch of traffic they didn't really care about, wasn't really their ICP, didn't really matter because they're ranking for things like good life quotes and stuff like that. So cheese is what most companies strive for, but it's kind of like the beginning part. Next is content, which is the hamster wheel. This will keep them entertained for hours, and obviously you want to get them into your journey, into your funnel, but without copywriting and something that speaks to the ICP pain points, their fears, dreams, concerns, and decision-making criteria, they're less likely to move down that funnel. So hopefully you have something like this, which is an ICP or audience segment card, which has a high-level description, emotional triggers, fears and concerns, hopes and dreams, decision-making criteria, etc., so that you can speak to those in your actual landing page and content. And of course, you might have sub-personas or sub-ICPs and audience segments that you also want to tailor on a mass scale to all of your pages. A quick example of this is QuickBooks. For example, they're targeting sub-personas such as construction workers and construction companies. And it's things like for their hopes and dreams, stack that grows does not replace. So they don't want to replace some of their tech stack right now with Jobber, Notify, Builder Trend. Their fears and concerns is kind of getting a generic accounting solution, which ignores kind of the nuances of construction. Decision-making criteria, construction-specific workflows such as job costing, progressive billing, emotional triggers, and pain points such as progressive billing. Obviously, I picked this as an example because it's a great example in terms of how they speak to their ICP on that landing page by talking about the apps they already use, and you don't have to worry, it'll connect to them, plus invoice-specific things for them. But obviously, they only have 2 niche pages opposed to a plethora of niche pages they could create. And again, this is based off of resourcing. And if you were to look at kind of a broad messaging, if you were to use that in that ICP landing page or that niche specific landing page, whether that be B2B or B2C or D2C, you're obviously going to reduce the effectiveness of that messaging if it's not done appropriately for that specific ICP. And thankfully to AI, which is amazing, you can scale out that kind of personalization for feature pages, solution pages, niche and vertical pages if you're B2B, tofu, mofu, bofu, PLPs and PDPs, instead of just using programmatic content creation for your PLPs and PDPs based off of your data warehouse and the descriptions, the product, the SKUs, etc. You can do it even more elaborately for all of those pages. And pricing justification. Most B2B or D2C, depending on the product, will have a pricing justification for just one page, but now you can have multiple pages that speak to the ICP and the pricing that is most potent to them. So this kind of works on 2 fronts. One is that as AI queries become much more sophisticated, you're more likely to fail on both fronts if you use generic messaging. 1, for conversion, and 2, because LLMs really like when you speak to the ICP and list out your ICP and who you're for and what you do. And we'll talk about that later a little bit too. So an example of a good persona that you can ask an LLM is something like build me a persona of a job title with roles and responsibilities, industry, company size, geography, etc. This is a really simple prompt that you could use and obviously replace it if you're B2B with yours. And we'll talk about B2C as well later. But what you want to do is as you start to get into prompt engineering, you want to ensure that you start to think about variables that could be changed out, such as job title, roles, responsibilities, product, service, etc. Because as you get more sophisticated in building your AI agents, it'll get more complicated in terms of what variables you fill in dynamically. And that obviously improves the output. And then you can kind of look at, okay, well, based off of that scorecard and based off of the output of the ICP analysis by the AI, what you should do with that output is address some of the ICP's pain points, concerns, hopes and fears, etc. And then you can do that at scale across all of your audience segments. So we're going to do that live right now. So what I want someone in the chat to do is give me a landing page, whether that be a product page, a PLP, a PDP, a niche page, a service page, a features page, just something I can analyze. Our ICP AI analysis scorecard. This is what we built. It's pretty simple. Few disclaimers. We don't have access to your brand guidelines. We don't have access to your product guidelines or enrich ICP data. We don't have access to your sales data, obviously, which has pain points in it. We don't have access to your marketing collateral or your first-party data. So this is simply what AI can synthesize online. So with that said, if someone wants to post a URL, it doesn't have to be your URL. It could be your competitor's URL as well. And then we can kind of do an analysis if you're speaking to your ICP or not. So I'll monitor the chat and just put the URL and then whether it's B2C or B2B. Perfect. Sorry, let me just unpin this. So now what it's doing is it's going in, it's fetching the data, it's crawling it. Hopefully your website doesn't block us. And then once it analyzes whether it's B2C or B2B, it'll go through this automatic workflow. And it'll start to analyze the ICP, go through a sequence of prompts, and then spit out a report. Based off the report, you can do lots of things with it. You can take it and feed into an LLM and get it to analyze and how to rewrite your content potentially. You can look at ways of seeing if the ICP is accurate or if you want to adjust the ICP analysis. And then from there, you can kind of do this at scale. If you have programmatic content that you're currently building out, it allows you to analyze that content and adjust this for all of your pages. So appreciate your patience as this goes through, and I drink a sip of water. And we're using N8N. There's lots of automation tools out there that exist for building AI agents. There's Relevance AI, there's AirOps if you're more of an SEO agency, Make, Zapier. We picked N8N just because it was the nerdiest and least amount of restrictions for us. So that's what we appreciate about it. While this is going through, if anyone else in the chat wants to list out their website or a competitor's website, and we could do another analysis while we review the analysis we're doing right now. So anyone else in the chat want to give out their URL? If not, we can stick with one too. Perfect, thank you. Is that B2B or B2C or B2B? Perfect. Whoops. So while that's going, this should be here. So here we can see some of the ICP analysis. So let me just do this. So daily responsibilities, the target buyer is responsible for ensuring security and efficiency business in computing environments, often handling sensitive client data. They must oversee daily operations. So here you can see we scored around a 3 out of 5. So the web page references importance of security and confidentiality, especially where sensitive data like social security numbers are involved. However, it does not provide detailed information about the daily workflows or specific performance metrics. And again, of course, take this with a grain of salt. It's not perfect. It's just what AI can synthesize online. Here we can see budget authority. The buyer typically has some level of budget authority, influence over IT spending. When the page includes links to pricing model comparison, it does not discuss budget authority approval process, so how you can make that easier. Failed solutions they've tried before. Previous solutions may have lacked comprehensive security responsive support, leading to ongoing concerns. While testimonials praise supports and security, there's a little explicit mention of failed previous solutions or specific shortcomings or alternatives. The content can focus more on positive outcomes and past failures, things like this. So again, not perfect because we don't have access to all your data, but it's a great way of analyzing and seeing where things might fall short and then adjusting the content accordingly. Yeah, no worries. So this one is going to, so this one should be live soon too. And then I'll put in this one as well. And that one was B2C. Perfect. I was hoping for a B2C example as well. Yeah, just message me on LinkedIn and I'll send it to you. We're creating a gadget for this so that anyone can access it. And that way, anyone can do their own like little persona analysis. Of course, to be more advanced, you would have a RAG that has all of your data in it, like your product guidelines, your brand guidelines, etc. So when it references the RAG, it has better analysis to output. But even with just AI, some of the data outputs is freaking awesome. So that one's done. And while we're looking at that one, we'll test this one. So Nest and B2C submit. I'll let that run. And then there's this one. So this one has quite few lower scores in comparison. There we go. So let's look at this one. The buyer is responsible for overseeing selection, implementation of workplace solutions that improve productivity, safety, and employee well-being. They regularly evaluate product offerings, manage relationships with suppliers. So the web page lists product categories she is applying the buyer's broad oversight, but does not provide explicit details about daily tasks or KPIs. There's no direct suspension of responsibilities or supplier management performance metrics. So this is something that could potentially be approved upon. Failed solutions as well. Risk factors. The buyer is concerned about the risk of selecting solutions that fail to deliver, which could damage their credibility within the organization. There's no mention of reputation risks. Stakeholder approvers. Common objections may include concerns about cost, complexity of integrations, or doubts of the solution effectiveness. The web page does not mention any objection or challenges if the buyers might face evaluation process. So these are just a couple of examples. Again, you can message me on LinkedIn. I can just send it to you after as well. And is this one done as well? Oh, this one's working here. Go to B2C. This one already done? Oh, it looks like it's already done. Oh, you're killing it. Awesome. The only feedback here, previous solutions. This is one a lot of companies fail at in mentioning previous solutions or dissatisfaction. They may have tried other formula brands or purchasing methods were expensive, unreliable, lack customer support. Past experience might experience fluctuation or frustration with fluctuating prices, ordering process, or products that did not suit their baby. Dissatisfaction with previous solutions motivate them. So while it does improve it, it does not directly reference competitors or negative past experiences. I don't necessarily agree with this one, actually, especially if it's a BOFU page. You don't want to mention competitors. So this one is actually not a good output, but everything else is great. So yeah, this is awesome. So this is a good example of just leveraging AI to kind of do an analysis for your ICP. So this is this workflow. It's pretty basic. If you build one that's a little bit more sophisticated, again, put a RAG, put in your ICP, put in your sales call data, and the output would be significantly better. The AI is only as good as what you put in. Yeah, I use N8N, but there's a whole bunch out there. There's relevance.ai, there's AirOps, there's Make, there's Zapier. There's a whole bunch. We use N8N because we're a bunch of nerds. And N8N is much more complicated to use. I would say that the more you can democratize automation, the more it's going to cost. But the less you democratize automation, the harder it is to use, but the cheaper it is. So I would use Relevance AI if I'm just looking for something that's like really simple to use, or AirOps. But if you have a bunch of nerds on your team, like N8N is freaking awesome. Oh yeah, sorry. And this is the website, n8n.cloud or n8n.com. No worries. And it's really simple to build AI agents. I have like a whole bunch of AI agents in N8N. I have one that just looks for people trying to sell me leads and sends them a riddle, which is hilarious. Next is lexical optimization. So lexical optimization or TF-IDF analysis is essentially how you look at n-gram analysis for SEO. So what you have to kind of understand the discrepancy between is what is lexical SEO and what is semantic SEO. Lexical SEO is what you typed, and semantic SEO is what you meant. So right now we're talking about lexical SEO, which is essentially a bag of words. So if you're to rank for something like best running shoe for bad knees, you'd have to have your content have best running shoes, bad, and knees in a vector space across a large corpus of text. You have to make sure that you have topical clusters around it, subclusters, etc. And LLMs more so work in the semantic world. So that's why lexical is still important, but a little bit less important. There's lots of TF-IDF or lexical tools out there, like Surf for SEO is probably the more popular one. There's also Phrase, there's Cora, there's Market Muse. There's so many of these TF-IDF tools. You can actually build this yourself. It's not difficult to build an n-gram analysis tool. And even Screaming Frog has n-grams built into it now. So you can do some like cool exports and whatnot. But in terms of TF-IDF analysis tool, it's really, really great. It's essentially just telling you what bag of words that should be in an article. The other thing is you will see semantics or entities within n-gram analysis. But the thing with entities and semantics is it's not telling you what the importance of that semantic is. It's just saying, hey, this is just a bag of words that are important for you to rank in Google. So if you have an SEO team, they're probably using a TF-IDF tool already and trying to hit a score of around 70 to 80 roughly. And we'll do a workflow that shows you your semantic score as well later. So that's TF-IDF, and that's lexical optimization. Next is LLMs, which is semantic optimization, which is how LLMs work, and what we're calling retrieval block optimization. Some people call it GEO, AEO, LMNOPO. Just so many different ways of saying it. I'm just calling it GEO/LMO. But there's a whole bunch of caveats around this because this is a very heated discussion in terms of if people think LMO and GEO is still SEO or if it's different. There's a lot of disagreement in the marketplace right now in LinkedIn. So there's no real concrete answer and there's no real playbook. The reason for this is that a playbook has some level of stability in the market, and there's no stability right now because things are changing so fast. So I just want to add that caveat when I kind of walk through what we do. Regardless of the debate, there's a lot of discussion around some of the technology that's being released. So for example, LLMs work with passage retrieval. Unlike Google, Google kind of analyzes your entire page and then decides what to do with that page. Versus passage retrieval is LLMs can just take a snippet of your page and then bounce. It doesn't have to read your entire page. So a lot of people are talking about strategic content chunking, which we'll talk about. Next is query fan-out. Query fan-out is essentially synthetic queries. So when you use an LLM and you say, hey, I'm looking for the best running shoes for bad knees, you'll see the LLM start to reason and you'll see queries pop up. So you'll actually see like, oh, I'm going to Google this, I'm going to search this, I'm going to search this. And that's what we're calling synthetic queries. So there's some debate in the SEO community that you should probably rank for all the synthetic queries, but I'm not actually for that because I asked my data scientists and developers and they're kind of saying synthetic queries are kind of, it's hard to track all of them. Next is a vector space competition. In Google, you're mostly ranking based off of backlinks, based off authority, and based off of TF-IDF analysis, and some lexical and some semantic. But LLMs work mostly in the semantic space, which is what we'll talk about soon. Format level coverage. So LLMs are multimodal. They understand video, images, and text. So you want to hit all three. And digital PR, which we won't be talking about today, but it's what everyone else says about your brand. It's not just what you say about your brand. And don't take my word for it. There's lots of great papers out there. When you get access to the decks later, read Stephen Wolfram's presentation on what is ChatGPT and why does it work. It's a great document. Dwayne Forrester has a great article on his Substack around the future of SEO. And Michael King has a really great article on Search Engine Land in terms of analyzing every single patent that's been put out by LLMs and kind of getting a firm understanding of how they operate. On top of that, there's a lot of concerning data because AI overviews reduce click-through rates by 34% as per Ahrefs. 88% of queries that are informational trigger an AI overview as per SEMrush. Queries with AI overviews sparked 43% of traffic into no clicks. So that's cited by SparkToro. And queries that are 3 to 5 words long show AI overviews 57% of the time, which is the majority of queries. So everyone in the industry's clicks are just plummeting off a cliff. And that's because of AI overviews, et cetera. So it's really brutal out there. So there's some other unpredictable variables of ranking in SERPs, in LLMs. One is search isn't on by default. There's something called utterance classification. Utterance classification is once an LLM receives a query, it decides whether to use up-to-date information or its training data. It can choose not to use up-to-date information, just use its training data. There's other papers out there that say that LLMs go through 3 models, which is utterance classification. Then they still might not use training data and cite the internet. And then it can kind of look at the discrepancy between those 2 answers and then decide what to do. So you can't control that. You also can't control if someone uses deep research, what models they use, account history. Account history is a big one because as you use LLMs, they start to profile you. So when I use an LLM, it says, oh, this person's from Digital Sisco. They're the founder. They're a medium-sized company. They're located in Toronto, Ontario. They do LMO and content creation. This is the kind of the B2B SaaS software that's right for them. Or I'll start to use some of your personal information and kind of come up with product recommendations. So it's very, very interesting that account history is playing such a major role, unlike ever before. Temperature settings, context windows, et cetera, all play a role. On top of that, you can't track for sequential dialogue. Some LLM tools claim that they can. There's a bunch out there. There's Peak AI, there's Brandlight, there's Scrunch, there's Profound, Otterly.ai, SEMrush has their version of LLM tracking. I think it's pretty garbage though. Ahrefs has brand AI overviews tracking. It's okay, it's not bad. But there's a whole bunch of tools out there, but it's very difficult to track sequential prompts. Model updates are very violent in comparison to Google. There's persistent history, like we talked about, source volatility. With some of our clients that were tracking LLMs with peak AI, you'll see that the sources that it uses for LLMs drastically change from month to month. So some people are saying, oh, well, I'll just go outreach to the people that's being used as sources, which you still should do, of course, but those sources can change dramatically as well. Infinite prompt combinations, which is where semantic comes in, which we'll talk about later. And my co-founder had a really great thought leadership post on LinkedIn that kind of talked about what most SEOs don't get yet, which is how I use Google versus how I use LLMs. And obviously how people use LLMs is getting more and more sophisticated, which is why semantics are so much more important, because Google operates on a lexical and semantic, but LLMs operate more so on semantic, which is extremely important for very long tail queries like the ones you see here. So again, lexical is what you typed, semantic is what you meant. And that includes things like if you were to Google best running shoes for bad knees, it's more so about injury prevention, joint support, athletic footwear, cushioning, and orthopedic features, because it's more so about what you meant, not what you typed. And these are things what people meant when they search best running shoes for bad knees, which is why a lot of outdated SEO agencies that some clients were working with couldn't understand why they weren't ranking, because they were still on the TF-IDF analysis approach or the lexical approach, and they never matured to the semantic approach. That's why a lot of companies are saying SEO is the way to rank in LLMs, because LLMs use the semantic approach. So the best way to understand vector embeddings and semantics, I like to play a game with our clients and prospects, which is if I forced you to decipher what I'm talking about, if I say the word scar, what would you think I'm talking about? Of course, it's a trick question. You have no idea what I'm talking about if I just use one word. But let's say I added another word. Let's say I added in the word forehead. In chat, just type what you think I'm talking about if you were forced to talk about Scarborough. Fair. Any other guesses? Acne, great guess. Great guess. Lion King, love that guess. Awesome guess. Perfect. A cut to the forehead, exactly. No idea, a cut. Exactly. You have no, this is the point, right? And an LM doesn't know. You're a wizard, Harry. I love that. So actually, so right now you're doing math in your head. Now I've given you another word, magic. Obviously someone already guessed it. But if I give you a different word like lion, you would say Lion King. If I gave you guns, you would say, oh, Scarface. It's definitely Harry Potter. Yeah. But that's how semantics work. An LLM understands you the more context you give it, which is why semantic and Google led over to semantic SEO more than lexical, because the more context you give it, the more it understands what you're saying. And this is just the math that's happening underneath the layer of the words that are appearing. So this is the easiest way to understand vector embeddings and like a 3D dimensional space, because as you add more words, these lines start to be drawn between the words. So with all of those caveats, I will say my perspective on LLMs is that it's still the same, but a little bit different. So what I mean by that is ranking LLMs is still technical SEO. It's still structured data. It's still semantics. It's still interlinking. It's still entities. It's still EAT factors. It's still all of those things. But some of the knobs are tuning a little bit differently. So what I'm calling is retrieval block optimization. This is where you have a direct response format. You have a clearly defined ICP, which a lot of companies hate. B2B especially, because they'll say, oh, well, we're for small, medium, and enterprise, but they don't really stick to an ICP. Same thing with B2B, or sorry, B2C and D2C. They're like, well, we're kind of for everyone, and we have some audience segments, but we want to be for everyone. So this is where it gets a little sticky, because LMs really like it when you clearly define who your ICP is. Semantic and entity optimization, which we'll talk about. Strategic content chunking, which I don't 100% agree with as an FYI. I agree with strategic content chunking to some aspect. A lot of people in the industry are saying LMs can only receive a passage, and it might only chunk a piece of your content and ignore the rest, which is true. But you can't control what it chunks or what it reads and what it decides to use as passage retrieval. So I'm looking at strategic content chunking more as make sure your H1, H2, H3s are very self-sufficient, let's say, but don't obsess over strategic content chunking. Next is incorporating supporting data points. Based off our research, LLMs really love to have some sort of supporting data points for whatever claims you make, because a lot of the SEO world is a bunch of Wikipedia content, a bunch of top of funnel tofu content that doesn't really add any value. So having supporting data points is super important. Evidence-backed differentiation, if you have a bottom of funnel page or a BOFU page, you really want to make sure you say why you're different. Because if you're just, hey, I offer this product and this other person offers this product, what makes these two products different? And then video and visual assets. Obviously, digital PR, link building, affiliates are also different, but the purpose of today's conversation is on page, so we won't be talking about the off page stuff and how that's different. So here's a couple of examples of retrieval block optimization, whether it's a blog, a PLP, a PDP, a features page, or a niche page. Here's just an example. Now, this isn't a strategic bullet that's going to fix all of your problems. This is just a B2B example. So if you're to go after what is SOC 2 compliance, SOC 2 is a voluntary attestation created by the AICPA entity and semantic, verifies how service organizations safeguard customer data across 5 trust service criteria, entity/semantic, security, availability, processing, according to DRADA's 2025 benchmarks, first-party data. You can cut control monitoring SOC 2 audit prep time from 90 to 30 days. Type 1 and Type 2 SOC 2 compliance, entities and semantics, ISO, HIPAA, and PCI DSS, entity and semantic, and then some sort of offer, fix fee audits via DRADA vetted CPA marketplace. So this is an example of a retrieval block that is semantic heavy, because as we talked about before, the more context you give an LLM in terms of understanding what you're talking about, the more likely you are to rank in LLMs, because LLMs are very lazy and they don't want to scan your entire content to understand what you're talking about. Example of a PDP example, or product description page for e-commerce folks out there. Nike shoes are bounce back foam made from Brazilian sugarcane, delivers 25% more energy return than standard EVA while shrinking the carbon footprint by each pair by 20%. Ranked the number one most comfortable recovery shoe by self, supporting data point, first party data point, and a point that supports you as being a differentiator. Revive stimulates blood flow, entity, raised footbed nodes, semantic, and machine washable, and for the ICP, designed for athletes. Again, a retrieval block that makes it more potent to show up in LLMs. So our content maturity framework kind of covers this. A lot of companies were obsessed with level 1 content, which is the wall of text, because it's the easiest to do and the quickest. We actually recommend all of our clients and everyone to up level to level 2, which is an image that encompasses the article, semantically optimized and lexically optimized to ensure that you're covering all bases for Google and LLMs, which most clients don't even get to this, if we're being honest. Then level up to level 3, which is a video and authority byline, because again, LLMs are multimodal. A gadget, if it makes sense, don't force it. And then thought leadership, first party data, strong opinions, hot takes, predictions, forecasts, that makes you different. So we recommend everyone level up to level 5, but the problem is the 2010s for marketing was the worst because everyone got addicted to level 1 content and level 2 content because you can pump it out, get a bunch of traffic, you can remarket that traffic, and it was very, very addictive. So people are like, well, why would I level up to level 4 and level 5 if I could just pump out more level 1 and level 2 content and it's way cheaper? And I'll just use a stock photo for my imagery, which hurt a lot of companies moving into the LLM space because now they're leveling up late and they're like, oh, this costs a lot of money to produce videos. It costs a lot of money to do all this optimization. So some companies are ranking well because they kind of leveled up their content as they went through. So we're going to do this live. Again, we have a automated, I guess, evaluation of your content. So if you give me a page, what we do is we'll go through this process. So whether anyone, again, doesn't have to be your URL. You can give me any URL. If no one says anything, I'm just going to use the URLs people provided earlier. But does anyone want to give me their URL so we can test this workflow? This here always makes me unpin. I have to unpin this, go back, trash workflow, test workflow. Okay. Oh, whoops, sorry. I didn't copy that properly. My mistake. Oh, never lets me copy directly from it. And yay. Perfect. And let's do that one. Oh, whoops, sorry, went to the wrong one. Okay, so while this is working, fingers crossed it doesn't break. This is always the scary thing about doing a live thing. We are scraping your page, cleaning up the HTML, extracting the markdown, and then trying to figure out what you're trying to rank for in an LLM based off your homepage. Now what we're doing is we're going to, let me zoom in here a bit. We are going to Perplexity, GPT-4o, Gemini 2.5, and we're extracting all the responses for the estimated query that you're trying to rank for. And then we're going through and combining all the inputs to come up with the golden standard documents. The golden standard document is arranging all these inputs and trying to track all of the n-grams and all the entities and semantics. From there, we start to extract the entities and semantics from the golden standard document and run it through an analysis using AI. Then we combine it, and then we start to weigh it based off of unigrams, bigrams, trigrams, and the entities and give you a score. Then we use AI to look at the scoring of those, plus semantic chunking, plus data point differentiation if those are present. Then we combine all of that and stick it out into the output that will show up later. So this takes a little bit more time, and this is usually where it breaks. So I'm like sweating bullets right now, hoping it doesn't break. I have a backup mode that's a little bit better, a little bit more stable, but this one has a way cooler output. So again, we're using N8N and we're reverse engineering the LLM output. So similar to how Google used to operate back in the day, this is very reminiscent of Google early 2000s, early 2010s, where most companies were rushing to decipher how to scrape the SERP of Google, because Google's biggest weakness was the fact that it showed you exactly what it wanted. So what we're doing here is scraping the LM, no different than we scrape the SERP, seeing what the answers are, and then reverse engineering what's being talked about. And then we kind of see, okay, well, based off of that, is your landing page speaking to it? And then it gives you kind of an output of, here are the entities you should look at, here are the semantics you should look at, and what you should optimize. Of course, you have to balance this, right? Because you have to talk about the ICP, we have to talk about persuasive copywriting techniques, you have to talk about lexical and semantic. So balancing all these things is very difficult, but this is why AI is here to help us do that. Why this part is taking a little bit longer is because we use different models as we go through it. Right now, we're using R1 Deep Thinking from DeepSeek, transparently because it's the cheapest, but it also has really great analysis. Obviously, using GPT-4o for them, Gemini 2.5 Flash, and Perplexity 4o to get their responses. Yes, it worked. Okay, perfect. No errors. Now we're going to go through and do that analysis, and we're using 4.1 because it's just smarter than DeepSeek in order to do the strategic content chunking. So as you get more sophisticated in your workflows, you'll start to analyze and see what models work best for what. This is really complicated because obviously when you're working in the interface, it'll be like, oh, well, I really like Claude for this, and I really like GPT for this. But it starts to get even more sophisticated when you're like, oh, well, actually the API output for GPT is like this and the Claude output's like this. So it gets really, really complicated, but just it's all trial and error when using the APIs to see what has the best output. It's also super fascinating because, in my opinion, Claude is probably by far the best in terms of output as well as in terms of the API, but it's also the most expensive, which is really frustrating. So that's why we don't use Claude very often, because it's just significantly more expensive. So this output might cost us $3. Well, if we use Claude, it probably costs us $20, which doesn't seem like a lot, but if you're doing 1,000 pages all at once, those costs tend to add up quite dramatically. So while we're doing that, actually, I will set up. Just want to make sure that ran properly. Okay, perfect. That did run. Okay, great. So I'm going to let this finish just in case anything breaks. Perfect. All right, now I'm going to do someone else's site while I go through that one. Who wanted, okay, Brim Financial. Brim Financial. Let's do this. And we'll let that run. So here's an example for nfml.ca, retrieval block optimization. So what it guessed based off of LLM responses in your ICP, because it does a little bit of an ICP analysis. is how can I find and choose between best infant formula related to products to support my baby's development when what benefits are going to access as a parent in Canada. So this is what it guessed as an example. We can see here that you're missing and underutilized terms or n-gram analysis are these ones: newborns, features, standards, approval, recommendations, consult, provide, healthcare, and nutrition. This isn't to say you're not mentioning these things. It's just to say that in terms of underutilization, based off of our pull of the LM response, these are potentially missing n-grams. For underutilized entities or semantics, again, directional, formula types. I didn't realize that this was a thing, or maybe it's not. I'm not going to question that. Specialized formulas are coming out, lactose-free. I don't know what this is. Soy-based alternatives, key nutrients, iron supplements, whatever this is, and formula preparation. So these are examples of what we're scraping from the LLM and what the LLM is mentioning based off of this query. Ambiguity checks is essentially, this is what's being mentioned in the LLM, but based off of scraping your website, we don't know if it's appropriate to mention these things. So store brand formulas, bulk discounts, food banks, community resources, and provincial programs. The AI agent wasn't sure because it was mentioned, but it didn't know if based off your product, if it made sense to mention. So here's a sample paragraph that is tight with entities mentioned. So infant formulas are designed to support your baby's development with expert recommendations, level DHA, and a unique blend of key nutrients closely resembling breast milk. Our range includes cuddle milk, bowel specialized formulas such as whatever this is for tummy troubles with options tailored for newborns, etc. So this is an example of a retrieval block optimization based off the entities we saw. Again, I wouldn't take this for gospel. This is just directional. And of course, we don't have access to all of your data to do the best analysis possible, but it gives you an idea of what you could be looking at when it comes to scraping those models. In terms of strategic content chunking, some potential missing topics or themes, again, just based off what it scraped. Consulting healthcare providers, guidance on discussing formula choices, government support, retailer strategies, advice on loyalty programs, community resources, and related products, and guidance on bottles, sterilization, water safety, and formula. Of course, if this is for your homepage, you can't have your homepage do all of these things all at once, so I wouldn't force it, but it's something you can analyze and look at. Here are some recommendations that the AI agent came up with. Add sections on advising parents to consult healthcare, include information about government benefits, etc. Data points. Here are some differentiating points you might want to include. Buying based off of savings, loyalty programs, Canada Child Benefit. I don't have any kids. I don't know what that is. Prioritize formulas, etc. And then recommended statements to add data points here as well. And it has a score for each. So this is an example of a really quick and dirty output you can do across all of your pages, because then we're just doing one page for the sake of time, but this is analysis you could do across the board. And let's see. It broke. Oh, no, wait, it still went though. So they still think it's fine. Let's do a hard refresh. So for Brim Financial, how quickly can I launch and upgrade a digital first credit card program with advanced rewards, a seamless experience, and a robust platform? This is what the AI agent scraped and what it thinks someone in the LM might search. Missing underutilized entities, compliance, partners, testing, features, deploy integration, LX, MVP. Don't necessarily agree with all of these. Honestly, probably not the greatest. I would only use some of these. Underutilized entities within that semantic block, digital first credit card program, advanced awards, platform capabilities, strategic partnerships, modern infrastructure, card as a service, etc. Again, take this as directional. Ambiguity checks, things that you might want to check, including fraud monitoring, if that's available. If that was scraped, so if that's available, mentioned on the page. A good semantic block that could be incorporated. Love these M dashes, that's is written by AI. Enables bank, fintechs, and merchants to rapidly launch modernized digital first credit card programs with advanced rewards, seamless UX, and robust platforms and capabilities. Strategic content chunking, some content chunks you might want to look at, including such as phase approach, strategic planning, critical success factors, and post-launch interactions. Couple of recommendations, some supporting data points you might want to consider to putting those in, and then recommended additional supporting data points or product differentiating points. So again, not perfect, but really great way to get things started and the conversation started. Again, if you had everything based on your RAG, this output would be significantly better, but it's a good starting point for analyzing your LLMs. Again, we use N8N, but lots of different LLMs out there. Just message me on LinkedIn and I'll send it to you. No problem. Any questions on this so far, actually? I know it's a lot, but I'm trying to make it interactive and fun. For us non-SEOs, did you create this tool or is it part of NAN? We created it at Digital Cisco. We have a bunch of automations like this that help do this at scale. But we're not demoing those because they're built for our clients and we have to put all their stuff in a RAG. When you build automations, you want to build out your own database and RAG database so that your answers are much more better for you. But otherwise, you have to create this all from scratch. N8N does have some templates for you that you can use. Like it has like YouTube transcribers, SEO optimizers. I wouldn't trust any of it though. I would prefer to build out everything from scratch. Because again, if you don't have a RAG database, SEO will go, or N8N and AI will go rogue and start making these random recommendations. It'll start hallucinating your ICP. It'll do some crazy stuff. Even some of like the documents we went over, like I agree with some of it, but not all of it, just because it doesn't have access to your data. So to answer your question directly, use N8N to create the tools, but these don't come pre-built. You have to build them from scratch. Any other questions so far? Great. So next is copywriting models. So for copywriting models, there's a couple that you can do for your on-page optimization. There's the 4 Ps, picture, promise, prove, and push. So paint a picture of the problem, offer a solution, provide proof, and then encourage users to take action. We usually recommend these to our clients if it's for who's it for pages, testimonial pages, etc. The problem with a lot of testimonial pages and who's it for pages, they kind of just like do testimonials and let them speak for themselves without adding any additional creative copy. But we always recommend our clients actually add the 4 Ps and do some analysis. Because even if you're doing those, it's really great just to agitate those pain points and offer your unique selling point as well. PASS is also a great copywriting framework. It's identify the problem, agitate the pain point, and then offer your solution. This is great for sales pages, gated assets, and long form landing pages. Again, a lot of gated assets we see is just like, here's an image, here's fill out your information, and that's it, which is fair because you want people to give their email for your MQLs or SQLs. But of course, having additional copy to encourage that download is also really good. And the one we use the most is ADA. So grab the user's attention, provide interesting information, highlight your unique selling points, provide additional assurance, and then end with an action or a strong call to action. This is mostly used for home pages and landing pages and product pages, or PLPs and PDPs. So another great example of using ADA across the board. I was going to demo this, but our N8N workflow broke. So we'll kind of talk through some prompts instead. Here's an example of a really sophisticated prompt you can run. Again, you want to ensure that when you use your ADA prompt or any prompt, you start to think about variables that could be interchangeable based off of your N8N and automated workflows. So again, when you create your N8N, you might have these dynamically put in, or sorry, relevance or Zapier or whatever you want to use. You might have these dynamically put in on a page-by-page basis because every page is different. So think about PLPs and PDPs on steroids now and speaking to all of your ICPs across the board. Or if you're a B2B company, think about all your industry pages. If you're for healthcare, educational, etc., all your niche pages, construction, can all be super, super unique across the board. Again, not advocating you let it run wild. Always have some sort of level of human oversight at every step of the funnel, or every step of the stage, rather. And as you get even more sophisticated with your prompt and prompt engineering, and you have a RAG set up, you can reference your RAG and look at your demographics, psychographics, pain points, and get really, really sophisticated with your output when it comes to building out your prompts and building out your AI agents and workflows. So again, we were going to do it live, but it broke. Sorry about that, folks. Next is taking inventory of your pages and site architecture. The one thing I'll kind of get on a soapbox about this, so I'll take a drink of water first. When it comes to LLMs and AI, you also notice that they're really, really stupid. And the reason they're stupid is because if you the less information you give it, the worse the output is. So if you know something really, really, really well, test the LLMs with something you know really well first. So if I go to an LLM and say, hey, optimize this URL, the output is obviously terrible. If I give it some additional context and I say, hey, optimize this URL, it's a PLP page, and here's the lexical inputs, they'll do a little bit better. If you say, hey, here's a PDP page, here's the ICP, here's the lexical inputs, here's the semantic inputs, it's a BOFU page, here's input, 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 it'll do significantly better. If you start to define what those things are and say, this is a PLP page, and a PLP page or a product listing page is usually a list of all the products, blah, 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 it'll do even better. And then you'll say, wait a minute, why does LLM not know what a PLP page is? And then you'll get it to define a PLP page. It'll do an amazing job defining it. And then you'll give it its own definition and the output will be better. And you'll be like, how can you know what a PLP is? You can define it, but I have to tell you what a PLP page is. It's ludicrous. So you'll get better outputs the more inputs you give it and the more definitions you give it, especially at scale. So what you want to do is take inventory of all of your pages when you start to do this programmatically across all of them. So if you're like, Chris, I want to do ICP analysis, I want to do conversion copywriting, I want to do lexical, I want to do semantic, I want to do this programmatically across all of my hundreds or thousands of pages. Again, don't recommend it, always have human oversight. But if you did want to do that, you have to feed it in the information for those pages. You have to say, this is a PLP, here's the ICP, here's the lexical, here's etc. And that's why I'm also a co-founder of a tool called Snap SEO. Snap SEO does all the heavy lifting for you. It identifies the pages, it does the keyword mapping, it does the content hub formation, it does the subclusters and topic clusters, the funnel stage, and it maps keywords in a 3D semantic space. So you understand how your semantic relevance is looking on a page-by-page basis. If you have to go to snapseo.ai directly because we de-index the page for now because we're going through a rebrand. But I'll give you an example of what that output looks like. So here's an example of an output for Snap. It'll have all your URLs and you have all your topic clusters and subclusters. So all we have is announcements and compliance. This is obviously for a SOC 2 compliance website. So you can see here, we store all of your content on your website into a vector database, and then we get AI to say, what is this page about? So it'll say these pages are about cannabis compliance solutions, healthcare solutions, AI regulation, data privacy, GDPR, ISO compliancy, etc. And why this is important is because in the LLM world, you want to look at interlinking a little bit differently, not just based off of lexical, but based off of your semantic relationships between these pages. You also need to know what the page template is to feed that into an LLM. So is it a case study, a blog, a landing page, a marketing landing page, etc.? Is it solution aware, brand aware, product aware? Is it tofu, mofu, or bofu? What are some of the target audiences, content purposes, splits, clicks, keyword mappings, etc. So it does all that data and analysis for you so that the output can be fed into an LLM. So that is Snap SEO. It also has a 3D rendering of your topic, so you can kind of take a look and see what pages are corresponding to what keywords and a semantic vector space, which is really cool. Transparently, Screaming Frog also came out with this like 2 days ago, but we were first, so give us a shout out. So that's Snap. We can't do this live because it currently requires access to your Google Search Console data. And we use your GSC data to bring in all those data points and to crawl your website. We are releasing a feature soon where you don't need access to your GSC data, and we'll just crawl any website you give us. So you can even crawl your competitors and see what that looks like. So putting it all together, as I take a sip of water, you want to prioritize your ICP first. You don't want your website to be all cheese and no trap. So we actually prefer brand consistency first, ICP alignment, and then move on to SEO and LMO. These ICP should always take priority over everything else because obviously if you're not speaking to your ICP, it's not going to land very well. Then move on to n-gram analysis, lexical analysis, and semantic analysis using some analysis tools. Right now, there's no semantic tool out there that exists. Only lexical analysis tools exist, such as Surfer SEO. There's no Surfer SEO for semantic right now, or at least that I think is good, which is why we built our own for now with that tool that we showed you. But again, building out your own is always advisable as well. Then move on to conversion copywriting frameworks like ADA or CRO conversion copywriting frameworks. Then move on to UX and UI. Sometimes this is a chicken and egg problem. Some people are like, well, I need to write content if I need to know what boxes they're being put in. But I would advise on ensuring you're speaking to your ICP and not being put in a box. We've had some clients or prospects in the past say, oh, you can only use 300 words max based off the UX UI, which is insane. Then everyone's least favorite team, legal and compliance. And then after all that's done, then, if your CEO wants to put a picture of their dog, they can, or some really weird request or write some blog post that's questionable. So this is how I would prioritize things based off of Digital Cisco and how we approach things. I want to leave 5 minutes for any questions. So is there any questions, comments, thoughts, concerns? And hopefully this was helpful. Nope, no questions. Yeah, no worries. Perfect. Sounds good. Awesome. Yeah, just connect with me on LinkedIn, and I will send you a copy of the output. No problem at all. Perfect. Yeah. No worries. Yeah, if any other questions come up, connect with me on LinkedIn. Happy to chat. Always love talking about this stuff. Again, I use N8N just because I found it useful. But if you looking for more of a democratized tool, there's all different types of AI agent tools out there. But N8N I find the best. Yeah, Geo is what I would call it. Geo, answer engine optimization, generative engine optimization, SEO. It goes by a lot of different names. But really it's like, yeah, it's still SEO / LMO at the end of the day. Great. Yeah, if there's no other questions, thanks everyone for joining. Alexandra, is there anything else we need to do on your end before we jump off the call?
No, you're all good. Thanks so much for everything, Chris. You were incredible, and this was really insightful. So thank you for your time.
Awesome. Thanks, folks. Really appreciate everyone tuning in. Thanks so much.
Thank you.